Hi everyone, I'm Tiana and this is my presentation on rhythm. So rhythm is the way that music is organized into time. And beat is the steady pulse that underlies most music. Sometimes beat, you can hear it and sometimes you can't, depending on the music. So beat is like the silent ticking of a second hand on a clock. Tempo is the speed of the beat, and each tempo has its own Italian name. So one tempo is called allegro, which means cheerful in Italian, and this is a pretty fast tempo. It means lively and fast. Here's a chart with a bunch of different tempos. You can see prestissimo is very, very fast. Grave is the slowest one. Each of them has its own Italian name and it represents the speed of the beat. So how many beats per minute is this tempo? So tempo can slow, which is called ritardando. Tempo can speed up, which is accelerando. If it's speeding or slowing gradually, it's called poco a poco. And if the tempo is speeding and slowing suddenly, then it's subito. When there's no steady tempo, which means there's no noticeable beat, the music is unmetered. So remember, sometimes we can hear the beat and sometimes we can't. If there's a perceived beat, but it speeds up and slows down for expressive effect, this is called rubato. Okay, now let's talk about meter. So beats are grouped into measures, which are separated by bar lines. The first beat is usually the strongest beat, so it's called the downbeat or the strong beat. Meter is the pattern of emphasis on groups of beats. And meter is usually either duple, triple, quadruple, or irregular asymmetrical. So let's talk about each one of these. Duple meter is when meter has groups of 2 beats. Triple meter is meter with groups of 3 beats. Can you guess what quadruple will be? Groups of 4 beats. But this is often confused with duple because 2 is a multiple of 4. So be careful. Okay, now let's talk about notes. So on the Academic test, they usually will, I don't think they have a picture. They'll usually say, what is the value, how many beats is each note? With a stem or a note with a whole and no stem. So make sure to get these down. So a whole note is if it's a circle, it's like a little O, and there's no stem on it. That's going to be a whole note. Then we have a half note, which just has a stem, quarter note, which it's solid. An eighth note has a little flag, 16th note has 2 flags, and 32nd note has 3 flags. Yes, so these might be difficult to remember. If you played piano like me, you probably already know these though. And we also have rests. So whole note rests, think of it as when it's worth a longer amount of time because it's a whole note, so that's going to be 4 beats usually. It's heavy, so it's like an upside down hat. The hat fell over because it uses more time. Where it's half note rest, it's not as heavy, it's only 2 beats. So this one just looks like a little hat. And then quarter note rest, looks like that. 8th note rest, 16th note, again, we just add another little flag there. Same with 32nd and 64th. So get these down. I don't know if we need to know 32nd and 64th, but get the other ones down for sure. And this is how they're placed on a staff. So rests are symbols of silence, and they indicate how long the musician should rest. Okay, now beams. When multiple flag notes have an alternative notation, which is beams. So as you can see here, when we have two notes with flags, the same amount of flags, see how both of these have two flags on them, and we have a bunch of them next to each other, we can connect them into these beams right here. So this is actually 4 of these notes. And I think this is a 16th note, and they're all connected in the beams. Now, what about dots? Notice this just looks like a half note, but it has a little dot. So a dot adds half the value to the original note. So this is a dotted half note. So it is equal to a half note plus a quarter note, because a quarter note is half of a half note. So that's its value is going to be a 3/4 note. So how much do you think a dotted quarter note is going to be worth? So we have, it's going to be worth a quarter note plus an eighth note. So that's going to be a 3/8 note. Okay, now let's talk about ties. So a curved line called a tie can tie the values of the notes together, so the note lasts as long as their combined values. So notice here we're tying together a half note and a quarter note. So that combined value is going to be just the same as a dotted half note, because it's 3/4 total. And same with these. You can see here they're adding multiple dots. Don't worry about that. But tying it together adds the value together. Okay. Now we can talk about time signature. So time signature indicates the meter, and it usually consists of 2 different numbers. So here it's a 4 on top of a 4, so we call this 4/4 time. And here it's a 3 on top of a 4, so that's called 3/4 time. And here it's a 2 on top of a 4, so that's called 2/4 time. So the lower number indicates a durational value. So 4 would mean a quarter note, 2 would mean a half note. And the upper number indicates how many of those durational values occur in one measure. It's not a fraction. So what does 3/4 time really mean then? This means that we're going to have 3 quarter notes in one measure, because 4 is the durational value, so that means a quarter note, and 3 is how many we have, so we'll have 3 quarter notes. So if instead of having 2 numbers on top of each other, where by the clef where we're supposed to have the time signature, if we just have a large capital letter C, this means common time, which means 4/4. So 4/4 means we're going to have 4 quarter notes in a measure. And if there's a slash through the C, then this is called cut time, and this time is 2/2. So that would mean 2 half notes per measure. Okay, simple and compound subdivision. So normally the beat is divided in half. Simple subdivision, this is kind of hard to understand just by reading it, but we would say this as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And sometimes the beat is divided into 3 equal parts, and this is called compound subdivision. And this is read as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, or it could be read as 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. So in swing music, it's notated as 4/4 time, but it's played as 12/8 time. pretty interesting. Okay, so mixed meter uses different meters that occur in rapid succession. And asymmetrical or irregular meter uses different meters that are alternating irregularly. And this could also mean that there's a steady beat, but it's grouped inconsistently. And polymeter is when we have two or more meters that are operating at the same time. Okay, syncopation. So the rhythm is syncopated when emphasized notes fall on weak beats or in between beats. That was the whole slide. Okay, polyrhythm, also called cross rhythm. When two conflicting rhythm patterns are present at the same time. The meter does not change, and this is really common in jazz. So our meter's staying the same, but we have two different rhythm patterns. All right, that's all for my presentation, guys. I made a Quizlet so we can study some of this because there's definitely a lot of terms here. All right.